Okay. Hello, everyone. Hi, Mondi. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully you all can see me, you can hear me okay. I do have a little bit of music playing, so I just want to make sure it's not too loud. So when you're here, say hi. Let's just make sure that you can see me and that you can hear me. We'll give everybody, good morning, Sarah. We'll give everybody a few moments to join in. And while we wait, I want to tell you, happy International Dance Day or World Dance Day. I've seen it called a couple of different things. It's a really fun day. I think there are a lot of events kind of happening that I've seen randomly around the internet, and was kind of thinking about, well, what could we do here at FCBDU to celebrate International Dance Day? Because really, like, we celebrate it all the time. Not only through through dancing and offering, so many different classes throughout the weeks, but also celebrating our international community. So I feel like FCBDU is hopefully a really great representation of International Dance Day, right? So we have, of course, about 20 free classes. So for those of you that are joining in today's free class, I encourage you to go out there and take our free classes on costuming and dance. We have a few drills out there. So hi, Nora. Music's okay? Great. Hi, Edna. Okay, so welcome, everyone. So this is a restorative yoga class. We'll go about 45 minutes-ish. And before I introduce you to what is restorative yoga, for those of you that are new here, I just want to let you know about a couple of props that you might want to grab. So I'm sitting on a folded up blanket. So a blanket or a towel is always nice to have for this practice. I also have a bolster, but I know that this isn't something people have necessarily around their house. So a couple of pillows would be really helpful. Even if you're like in your living room and you're looking around, just grab a pillow off of the sofa, or a couple of pillows off of the sofa, or even like a couch cushion. So just really, we use props a lot in our restorative practice to help support us. Yeah. So we're using these as support. So anything soft and comforting that you have around you to support your practice would be great. So really quick, I just wanted to explain what restorative yoga is and why I really wanted to offer this free class for those of you, of course, that have not taken it before. So the word yoga can kind of be a little intimidating to a lot of people I know. It's like, is it movement? Is it just breathing? Like, what exactly is it? And just like dance, there are several different types of yoga. And so Fridays here at FCBDU, we do a restorative yoga. And so what restorative yoga is it's really focusing more on presence and of being. So we're not going to work up a sweat. We're not going to feel a bunch of stretching or strengthening in our muscles. What we are going to do is put our bodies in these positions that we can completely feel supported, which is why we have our props, and ease into them. And the act of releasing tension throughout the body in these different positions not only helps the ligaments and the tendons and the muscles just really release and allow for more blood flow and recovery, but it's also such a wonderful practice for the mind and the breath. And restorative practice can actually be one of the hardest styles of yoga. So for me, and I won't get too much into the history, but for me, when I really started to like yoga was when I was going to those classes where I was sweating, I was moving, I wasn't thinking about anything except for my breath and keeping up. And that's what I needed at that time in my life. What I didn't like originally was a restorative class, because it's really hard, or it was really hard for me to just sit with my thoughts, sit with my breath, feel like feeling like I'm not doing something is always super challenging. So the restorative practice was such a wonderful balance to my dance practice that I didn't realize that I needed. So being able to let the mind release, let the body release, and let go really allows me to train my body to not only relax, but to also trust in that present moment, trust in my intuition, and just let go. So when I started incorporating restorative yoga into my dance training, I found that as I was dancing, I was not only able to kind of learn and train, I had trained my body how to release and let go. So I was finding more range of motion in my movements simply by learning how to release that tension that we naturally hold. But I was also falling into flow a lot easier because I was able to let myself be present and not try to think so much. So will that happen in one class? No. Will it happen in 10? Maybe not. But today I want to introduce you to that concept. Yeah? Okay, so we are going to start on our backs. You can totally do this in bed or on the couch if being on your back is not comfortable. So we're going to start on our backs, and what we're going to do while we are down here is I'm going to take my blanket, place it, I folded it up just to add a little bit of padding here. I'm going to place it in the center of my mat, and then I'm going to put my hips on that, and I'm going to go ahead and lay all the way down. You can definitely put a pillow under your head if you'd like, but what I'm trying to do here in my constructive rest pose is allow my hips. Do you see how my hips aren't exactly flat with my shoulders? So my hips are a little slightly bit elevated here. So we're just elevating our hips a little bit, as well as providing some stability and some just comfort and support to our sacrum, our tailbone. And so what I want you to do here is settle in. Let the knees be bent, the feet flat on the floor. If you would like to, you can walk the feet out a little bit and let the knees fall in toward each other. And let's place one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. Soften the eyes or even close them. And just take a moment here to settle into your space. Letting your head release and be really heavy down to the floor or to your pillow. Letting your shoulders relax down into the floor, almost like I was just gently pressing and adding just a little pressure just to kind of open up the chest a little bit more. Softening the belly. And just notice for a moment as we are focusing on the torso, just noticing what areas, if any, tend to move as we breathe. Do you feel the movement more in your upper chest or in your belly? You may notice it more in the back side of your body. And then letting your hips be really heavy down into your towel or your blanket. We're basically showing the body that it is fully supported and that it can relax and release. Letting the soles of your feet feel really heavy down toward the earth. And just taking a few moments and seeing if you can just melt everything down to the floor. Can you release your glutes a little bit more? Can you relax your jaw and let your tongue just gently fall away from the roof of your mouth? And then let's take a few moments and connect with a 3-part breath. So there are lots of different options for pranayama or breath control, but for restorative, we try to use a 3-part breath. So the 3-part breath means that part 1 is when we breathe in through the nose and let the belly expand. The diaphragm is taking in the air, so basically sending the air deep down into the lungs. That same inhale then moves into the rib cage, so continuing the inhale through the nose into the rib cage. And the 3rd part is letting that breath go into the chest. So you're just gradually filling the cavity, the thoracic cavity. And then as you exhale, letting the chest relax, and then the rib cage, and finally letting the belly relax so that the air leaves from the top all the way down to the diaphragm. And then continuing that with the next inhale, letting the inhale go deep down into the diaphragm. It's almost like you're pouring water into a vessel, but instead we're pulling air into the vessel where the bottom fills up first, and then the middle, and then the top, which is our chest. And then through the nose, letting all of that air pour out, first from the top, and then from the middle, and then from the bottom. So just continuing with your own pace, your own breath, letting all of it happen in and out through the nose. Seeing if you can slow it down just a little bit more than you normally would. This type of breath is really wonderful for our nervous system to just come into more of a rest and digest mode instead of our typical fight or flight mode. Even the act of letting the exhales take a little longer than the inhales affects our nervous system in even more positive ways and encourages the body to just relax and release a little bit more. And if your mind begins to wander or you find yourself quote unquote getting bored, that is where the challenge is, right? The act of just being and not doing. So continuing with a few more breaths. Something that really helped me was focusing on feeling the air and that little space between my nose and my upper lip. Just noticing the temperature of the air, the pace, giving my mind something to do. Take one more round here, but then just knowing to continue this type of breath throughout the rest of our class. We'll ebb and flow, but whenever your mind comes back to it, just reset as needed. And then I want you to just gently put a little engagement into the low belly, just to release the tailbone down to the floor a little bit more. And as you do this, let's begin to slide the left leg long on the mat. And I only want you to slide it as long as you can without arching your back. So still thinking about that dance posture in the low back and in the low belly. Just hanging out here for a moment. Letting the hip on the left side extend. That little tiny bit of elevation under our hips with our blanket or our towel helps us get just slightly more into the ligaments, the tendons, deeper into that joint. There shouldn't be any deep sensation here. It might not even be noticeable. But the more you can focus on releasing, relaxing, perhaps the thigh, the glutes, even the outside edge of your left leg encourages a release of a little tension from that area. Letting the heaviness of the release of tension allows us to release a little deeper, relax a little bit more. Returning to your 3-part breath if you've already let it go, keeping the left leg where it is. Just noticing if the breath feels a little different now that we have a little more space along the left side. And if you found yourself arching in the back, just rebend the left knee a little bit. It's not about how deep we go or how straight our leg is. It's about being able to hold the position in a completely restful and relaxed way. That's where we're going to get the benefits of that release of tension. Let's take 2 more rounds of that 3-part breath here, nice and slow, your own pace. And after your 3rd round of breath, just slowly sliding that left leg back in where your foot is on the floor, your knee just kind of pointing up toward the ceiling for a moment, and just take a moment here. You may notice a subtle difference just in the breath, maybe in the hip. And then let's start on the other side, just gradually sliding that right foot. Remember to re-engage the low belly if you've lost that very, very slight contraction. And keep in mind that one leg might not go as straight as the other, and that is completely fine. It's not about comparing one side to the other. It's not about going as deep. It's about honoring where we are on this day, in this moment, in this position. And returning to your 3-part breath if you've gotten out of that habit. So restorative yoga for many of you may feel more challenging than for others, especially those that are goal setters, checklist makers, productivity junkies. We're likely the people that needed a little bit more, a little extra restorative yoga in our lives. And for some of you, restorative yoga may feel like coming home, like complete peace. Something you wish you could stay in all the time. And that's the beauty of yoga, is there are so many different styles, so many different practices that we can explore, not only how they feel physically, but how they make us feel mentally, emotionally, and using them as tools in areas where we could really use a little extra assistance. Seeing if you can relax the hip a little bit more, perhaps even the glutes, the outside of that right leg. Remembering to check in with the breath. The breath relaxes the mind, which relaxes the body. It's a big cycle. The body relaxes, which relaxes the mind, which relaxes the breath. Let's take 3 more breaths here on this side, your own pace. Maybe try to slow it down just a little bit more. Third round of breath, I want you to slowly start extending the left leg now, and you might need to just readjust the hips, pull in the low belly a little bit to help support the low back. I only want you to go as far as feels good, where you don't lose that low back connection to the floor. So now with both legs straight, you might find that perhaps you have to bend both knees a little bit more. Maybe one leg at a time was able to elongate and extend, but perhaps both need a little extra support. Just that little bit of extension that we've added with the blanket under our hips just gently opens up the hips a little bit more than if we were just laying flat. We're just going to hold this for 3 breaths, easing into your most supportive posture here. Just noticing if there's tension in the hips or in the back, easing out of the posture as needed. When we slow down and even stop and rest, we can really tune in to areas of the body we didn't realize were holding on to so much tension. Keeping the legs where they are, let's extend the arms overhead. So just taking them along the floor, back behind you. Maybe they touch the floor, maybe they don't. And I just want you to imagine you're waking up first thing in the morning and just reaching your toes down and reaching your arms up and back. Just creating some nice space in the spine between the low body and the upper body. Big deep breaths, keeping the eyes soft or even closed. And as you inhale this next time, just kind of arch the back a little bit, lift the heart up toward the ceiling. And as you exhale, pull the belly in, almost like you're rounding the spine, almost like a reclined cat-cow, if you will. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, just opening the heart, just a little baby movement. Just like you're arching the back a little bit. Exhale, almost like you're trying to press the whole spine down into the floor. 1 more. If you're going a little slower than me, that's fine. And as your belly's pulled in, let's just slide the legs back in. The knees are up toward the ceiling, the soles of your feet are on the floor. And we're just going to begin a little transition into our next pose. So very, very gently and slowly, we're just going to roll over to one side. And just press yourself up nice and slow. Almost just like you're waking up for the morning time. And so we had a little time in some extension and just letting the whole front side of the body open up. So we're going to take a little bit of time and some flexions of the spine and just kind of like turn inward a little bit. So what you will need for this are your pillows or your bolster if you have a bolster. I'm going to check the live stream. Looks like it might be having a little issue, but if you can see me, we're going to set our pillows up long way on our mat. I'm going to give you some options for setup here. Yeah, I'm still live. Good. Okay. So some options for setup. This is a couple of things that you can do here. So first of all, we want to be comfortable in this position. So we don't want the floor to kind of push into the bony parts of our body. You know how sometimes you put the tops of your feet on the floor and the little bony bits hurt. So we don't want that. We want to definitely be comfortable here. So you might find that you want to let your blanket or your towel be a little more supportive here for the legs. And so I like to have my knees wide for this and my toes touching. If this is too much on your knees and you're feeling a pull here or any kind of tension in the legs, then what we want to do is try to elevate the hips to make this angle a little less. And you can do that a few ways. And for restorative yoga, we definitely take our time getting into the poses because it's important that we're able to release when we're in them. So some options. If you have extra pillows, definitely stick them under there, underneath your butt, kind kind of reduce this angle a little bit. Another option is to take your blanket or your towel and just kind of roll it up. We'll use this roll feature for our next pose too. And then placing it high underneath the knees, you see how it kind of reduces that angle a little bit more, and you can kind of play around with what works. And if none of this is working, just lay on your belly. It's fine. So it's all about just kind of a little bit of turning inward here. So getting yourself supported, there's no wrong way to do this. The only wrong way to do this is to be uncomfortable. So we definitely want you to be comfortable here. So I'm just gonna kind of place my, between my hips and my feet so that my heels don't dig into my hips. And then with your knees wide, let's pull these pillows in close. Now I like to kind of pull them up into my pelvis so that the pillows are kind of pushing on my belly a little bit rather than just being here. So if my pillows are flat and I lay down, then it's a little less kind of rounded and more flat. So for me personally, today I'm just gonna kind of pull my pillows up into my belly, but it's completely up to you. And then from here, I want you to sit up nice and tall, get lots of space between the discs and the spine. And then we're gonna fold over our pillows. And just placing one cheek down on the pillow. It doesn't matter if it's the right side or the left side. I'll cue you to switch. Settling in here for a few moments. We won't be here terribly long today, but I want you to have an opportunity to really settle in. So softening the eyes or closing the eyes is super helpful in this practice because it triggers to the body that you're relaxed, that you're not on alert. That it can release and let go and trust the area that you're in, trust the situation that you're in. And then I want you to try to return to that 3-part breath and just notice with your belly and your chest on your pillows how maybe that restricts a little bit of the amount of space you can create, but also it just kind of creates almost like a little massage to the belly and the rib cage and the chest. Letting all of the breathing happening through the nose. Some of you may notice that a forward fold feels more comforting than laying on your back. And some of you may feel that laying on your back and having your chest open toward the ceiling is a little more comforting. It's just interesting to note. It's helpful because those times when you maybe have a short amount of time and need to
focus on a little relaxation. You're a little more aware of what your body feels like when it's in a forward fold or when it's on its back. And what feels more relaxing. What allows you to release a little bit more. The next breath or two, just keeping the body where it is, but just changing to laying on the other cheek. So if you're on the right side, just changing to lay on the left side. Just noticing where you're still holding tension, maybe in the legs or in the glutes. Is the body holding on anywhere? And can you encourage it to just release? Maybe in the shoulders, even between the eyebrows. Let's take 3 more breaths here, nice and slow. And after that 3rd round of breath, just very, very gently and slowly, just start rounding yourself up. Just coming into a seated position for a moment, keeping the eyes soft or closed, and just taking a moment here. Relaxing the shoulders and your jaw. And we'll start moving into our second to last position of our practice today. Go ahead and put your pillows, if you have to, you can keep one at the top of your mat and the other one at the bottom part of your mat, just so that they're there for our final pose. But before we go into that one, I want to share one more That's super beneficial, especially for us dancers, really for anybody. So far we've just kind of opened up, let everything relax from the back, gotten into the hips just a little to encourage those deeper muscles, those ligaments and the tendons, just kind of release a little bit. Then we worked on the back and letting the rhomboids and the erector muscles and all those back muscles just kind of round and release as we turn inward. So what I'd like to work on now is a little bit more of the rib cage. So a lot of us are sitting all day, or maybe we're driving or we're working at our desk. And so then we come into dance class and we're asked to come into this posture that our bodies have been doing the opposite of for the whole day. So something that I've really found wonderful and restorative is just to kind of let the body reset into more of a neutral space. So with the upper body and the heart space, that's what we're going to work on now. So we're going to take our blanket or our towel, and if you don't already have it rolled up, creating a roll. Now, the thickness of your roll is going to depend on how much extension you're comfortably and easily able to get into. Remember, we don't want to put the body in a position where it's holding on. We want it to completely release. So for instance, for me today, I think I'll just fold my blanket or roll my blanket halfway and leave the rest of my blanket long. So positioning yourself on this is the interesting part, right? So what we want to do is we want to end up having this blanket roll along that chole line, right? Where we think about engaging for our posture, or a little bit higher. I don't want it any lower than your chole line, because then we start getting into the arching of the low back. And we definitely want to make sure that we're getting more into that thoracic extension and not low back extension. Okay, so it might just take a little finagling. Now, when you're down there, you can keep your knees bent, or if it's comfortable for you and you want to let your legs go long, I encourage you to put another rolled blanket or towel, or even a pillow under your legs, just to kind of help release the low back a little bit more. We're trying to not get into the low back, keeping the low back neutral, and really just focusing on getting into this middle back. Yeah, so it's kind of like right underneath your armpits. Finding that space where you're not struggling. So struggling would be where in no pain, right? We definitely don't want any pain, but struggling would be where you're arching your low back a lot. If that's the case, bend your knees, maybe have them in the same position that we had our constructive rest pose to start. You might find that you need to make your roll a little bit smaller. Again, we just kind of take some time to get settled into the position so that once we're there, we get the full benefit. And then you can let the arms come out to a T, or maybe cactus your arms or take them overhead. You notice the position of the arms changes the sensation along your back. So you might decide to keep the arms at a T because you feel a little more intensity with them in cactus, or vice versa. And again, we won't hold this too terribly long because this can be a little more intense than we really want it to be, but we are going to breathe here with that 3-part breath for a few moments. The benefits of this posture just allow us to get into our natural extension of this section of our spine that tends to round a lot more than we would necessarily want it to. Just encouraging the muscles to come back into a neutral place. Excuse me. And also the blanket roll kind of serves as a little massage along those muscles on our back. So just noticing the 3-part breath, the sensation in the body. Seeing if you can encourage the torso to be a little heavier down toward the floor. And let's take about 5 more breaths here. Nice and slow. Your slowest breaths of the entire class together. Ready, we're just going to gently roll to the side, just enough to remove that roll from underneath our backs. And we're going to take our time coming into our final pose of our practice together today, and that is Shavasana. It's like the ultimate just release, let everything go kind of pose. So how I'm going to set up today is I'm going to put a pillow under my head, which just because I have it, normally I don't have one of these in a regular Shavasana, except for restorative. So taking advantage of my props. And then also a pillow under my legs. And you can certainly roll up your towel or your blanket and place it under your knees. But just helping to release that low back a little bit more rather than arching. And we'll take a shorter Shavasana today. But I love those 10-minute Shavasanas where you can just like snuggle up with your blanket on top of you. So if you do have a blanket or a towel and you want to just snuggle in, we're just going to be here for a couple of minutes, but just feeling that ultimate release. Sometimes that little bit of blanket can help just encourage the body to relax a little bit more, because it's almost like a little bit of weight, or it triggers that thought of going to sleep at night. So as we make our way into our final practice, or our final pose of our practice, I want you to just let the feet feel really heavy here. And let the feet fall out or fall in, whatever feels natural and normal, whatever position the legs want to be in. Letting the backs of your knees be really heavy down toward the floor, down toward any support you have underneath you. And let's bring our attention to our hips and our pelvis. So encouraging the glutes to relax and release. Sometimes they just keep trying to hold on as if they're trying to balance you on the floor underneath you, but just encourage your body to know that you are fully supported and there is no need for it to work. There's no need for any added tension or muscle contractions, just completely release. Seeing if you can let your pelvis feel like it weighs about 10 times more than it does and just melt down toward the earth. Letting your belly and your rib cage relax down. Letting your shoulders broaden and relax away from the ears. Just seeing if you can get them a little heavier down toward the floor. Letting your jaw relax and the tongue away from the roof of your mouth. Even letting your eyes relax, softening or closing, letting them feel very heavy into their sockets. And finally, releasing that space just between the eyebrows where we tend to hold on to tension. Seeing if we can visualize our eyebrows kind of spreading apart and relaxing away from each other. And returning to whatever breath feels natural and normal for you. Perhaps maybe making your exhales a little longer and intentional than your inhales. Letting your next few inhales be a little bit deeper. And your next few exhales take a little bit longer. And bringing some awareness into your fingers and your toes as you make the smallest, most gentle little movements in your fingers and your toes. Moving that awareness into the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet. Gently moving your wrists and your ankles. And just gradually making the movements a little bit bigger. Maybe taking the arms overhead to stretch long, just whatever intuitive movement feels good to you, but keeping the eyes still closed or even soft. Almost like you're just waking up in the morning, but you have all the time in the world to do it. And eventually just taking a few moments to roll over to one side, but staying there for a few breaths. Just enjoying the transition between class and our day. And then just very gently and slowly pressing yourself back up to a comfortable seated position. Keeping your gaze either down or your eyes still closed or soft. Letting your hands rest along your thighs or your knees. And just take a moment to sit up tall here, letting your shoulders melt away from your ears, letting your spine be nice and long, your shoulders stacked over your hips. Let's take a few cleansing breaths together. So big inhale, the arms reach out and up overhead. Open mouth, exhale this time, let it all go. One more like that. Big inhale. Open mouth, exhale. And let's bring our hands together at heart center, an Anjali Mudra. A little gentle bow of our heads in gratitude for each and every one that has joined us today in our practice. For the energy that we've shared, the stillness that we've shared, the breath that ultimately connects us all. For showing up and honoring our bodies wherever they met us today. Honoring our minds, even through maybe some challenging times of stillness. And just honoring the time that we get to come together, no matter our distance. And just be completely ourselves, just be completely in our space, completely in our bodies. Thank you so much for joining me in this practice today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you kind of got a peek into the benefits of what restorative yoga can do, not only for your dance, but for your life in general. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below or email me, direct message me. I'm happy to help. And I will see you all next week. Namaste.